چجوری زبان انگلیسی رو یک بار برای همیشه یاد بگیریم و مثل یه نیتیو اسپیکر صحبت کنیم. سلام، به کانال یوتیوب من خوش اومدین. هر بار که من در حضور ایرانیا انگلیسی صحبت کردم یا حتی غیر ایرانیا، همیشه با این سوال مواجه شدم که چجوری انگلیسی رو انقدر عالی صحبت میکنی؟ از چه سنی یاد گرفتن رو شروع کردی؟ اصلا چجوری یاد گرفتی؟ آیا خارج از ایران بزرگ شدی؟ بر همین من تصمیم گرفتم امروز تو 2 تا ویدیو هم از داستان خودم بگم و اینکه چجوری زبان انگلیسی رو تو طول 1 سال به خودم یاد دادم و تو ویدیوی دوم یادگیری زبان رو براتون فرموله بکنم. توی ویدیوی اول، یعنی همین یکی که قرار از داستان خودم بگم، قرار به زبان انگلیسی صحبت بکنم برای اونایی که به دانش و تسلط من به این زبان ایمان ندارن. و تو ویدیوی دوم با استفاده از تجربیات شخصی خودم و تحقیقات و مقالاتی که راجع به پروسه زبان آموزی تو مغز انسان وجود داره، از همه کارهایی میگم که هر زبان آموز باید انجام بده تا زبان انگلیسی یا هر زبان دوم دیگه ای رو یک بار برای همیشه یاد بگیره، عالی صحبت بکنه و هیچ وقت فراموشش نکنه. وقت تلف کردن کافیه، بریم سراغ داستان من. As I said earlier in the intro, I learned English in exactly 1 year. I went from not knowing shit to being able to start a conversation, like not understanding everything, but being confident enough to just like go in and like just basically like pulling my weight. And let me take you back to where the whole like journey started. So when I was 7 years old, that was the first time that my parent took me to one of these like language learning institute. And it was so boring, and like my ADHD brain could not fathom the idea of like doing all these nonsense homework that they used to give us. Like I was 7, so I was like learning Farsi at the same time as English, and the English teacher would tell us to like write this word for like 2 pages, and I was like, this is too damn I can't even do it. And then I told my parents that I'm not going back. Like after 2-3 sessions, I said I'm not going back, and they did not push me or anything. They just said, okay, cool. Like a 7 years old brain can make such an important decision, and they just like trusted my decision. And later in life, I really regretted that decision, and I blamed my parents for not forcing me to do this, because as I entered middle school and high school, I went to Farzanegan, Sampod, and I looked this up, the English translation of Sampod, National Organization for Development of Exceptional Talent. So everybody and their grandparents could speak English except me, and it was really shameful, really embarrassing, and I was like bullied in middle school, and everybody was so far ahead of me that I couldn't catch up. And it just went on till the end of high school. I remember one of my lowest grades being from English. Like I scored way higher in biology and physics than fucking English. And you all know how simple the English subject in like high school is, but I still managed to, yeah. And then I had to take concours, which is the universal entrance exam for universities in Iran. And English subject, I realized that it's not in concours anymore, but back then it was. And English was something that everybody got like the highest score, and like it's just like a bonus for everyone. And for me, it was something that was dragging me down, and like that was pissing me off. Anyway, I took it. It went horribly, and I wanted to, as many others, I wanted to study medicine in university, and soon after like taking the exam, I knew that that's not going to be a possibility, and I fell into the pit hole of depression. I wasn't like talking to anyone. I was like locking myself up in my room, just watching TV, drowning myself in the internet for the first time in my life. And then I remembered that how much I wanted to like learn about other people in other countries, because like in Iran we're relatively isolated, we don't have many tourists, and also like growing up, my dad used to travel a lot and used to bring a lot of like foreigners into our house. So it was like part of my life, but I've never been exposed to it. So I started Googling and like talking to people online and just trying to run away from this reality. And then I came across like these chat rooms, which didn't work really well because first of all, I couldn't really say, hello, I'm from Iran. I had to Google everything and they would be like, why is it taking you so long to reply to one message? And I was like, oh, it's just like internet is really bad in Iran. But like I was Googling, I'm from Iran to double check if that's correct. I didn't know shit, guys. I didn't know shit. So, and also the other thing is that they're filled with perverts. You can't really go far in that. And that was just like a couple of days. And then I stumbled across YouTube. I mean, I knew about YouTube, but I wasn't like immersing myself in it. So I started like watching videos every day, and I'm telling you, like for 2-3 months, I was barely talking to anybody, maybe texting my friends or like talking to my family, couple of like sentences a day, but like that was it. Like I was watching How I Met Your Mother like all day, every day, scrolling. Like I was also like finding memes. Memes were like becoming huge back then. It was like 8 years ago and more, 9 years ago, yeah. So by the end of the summer, when the results of concours arrived, I decided that I'm gonna give this whole concours nonsense another chance. I'm gonna study one more year and take it one more time so that this time maybe I would score higher. As I started to study for the second concours, I kept this whole like talking to people online and watching videos in English and YouTube. This whole thing like was still going on beside it. And then one day I came across this post on 9gag, if you remember, like all the meme lovers, they were like super big back then. And they asked like, where are you guys from? And I was like scrolling through the comments and I saw this comment says, I'm from Saudi Arabia. And I was like, shit, like Saudi Arabia is a neighboring country and I don't know anything about them. And all I know is like a bunch of crazy myths. And I just like DM'd them. I was like, wow, Saudi Arabia, I'm from Iran. And we just like started talking and there were like so much to talk about. First of all, the myths. And second of all, there's like so much similarities between the cultures, between the histories. We just had so much to talk about. And let me remind you, still up to this point, I do not know jack shit in English. I cannot compose a sentence to save my own life. So at this stage 0, this is how I started. I was using Google as my main source of like translation, but not Google Translate, because I heard it, that it's jack shit. It's like funny translation, like don't even use it. Instead, I used Google, the search engine. And this is how I started in like the level 0. I Googled the phrase, the sentence in Farsi, and then at the end I added بإنجليزي, like in English. And then if I was lucky, somebody has already translated in some article in English, like to English. But if I, even like in the unluckiest situation, I would get like a general idea of what these words mean in English. And then I scrambled the words back into Google search engine. And then the English articles would come up. And then I would have a good idea of where to put the verbs and which preposition to use. And that's just how I took it from there. And it took a really long time. Like we were talking for hours, but the reality is that it just took me like probably 30 minutes to make one paragraph because I was like, had to Google back and forth. But yeah, this is just like how I communicated with this friend. The other thing that really helped, beside this shared passion to talk about politics and economics and all this goodness, was the fact that I wasn't trying to impress anyone. So I allowed myself to make mistakes and just like go for it and talk and type and without a care in the world. And as we talked more and more, it got a little bit easier for me to watch YouTube videos and understand them, at least a little. And also, it reminded me something very profound about myself. I remembered that before this whole concours shenanigan, I wasn't even interested in becoming a surgeon or going to med school at all. I loved politics. I loved economics. Like, I was obsessed with economics the moment that I heard about it. I was 16 years old. And I was like, what the fuck? Where this has been like my whole life? And it changed my entire career. At that moment, I decided that I don't want to go to med school. Like, even if I get the score, even if I get into med school, I don't want to do it. I want to study economics. So I took the second concours and the result came, and obviously I could get into any econ university that I wanted, and I chose the best one. But it wasn't that easy though. My family was super against it. Like, they were like, who studies economics? Like, that's just a recipe for disaster. And like, you're gonna end up in some shitty job in a shitty bank. And I was like, just sit back and watch me how I do it. So I stood my ground. I didn't budge, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, I went to University of Tehran to study economics. And the first session of the English class in university, the teacher, the professor said that, okay, let's take a turn, like go around the class, everybody like introduce themselves. And like, as always, I had like a paralyzing anxiety when it came to like English classes, because like I always sucked throughout my life. So I was preparing some sentences. And let me remind you that during the past year, I did not talk in English. Maybe like I said 2-3 sentences. I was just texting, I was just typing, and I was just watching and listening. I wasn't talking. So I prepared some sentences about myself, and then it was my turn, and the moment that I opened my mouth, not only everybody else around me was shocked, the professor was shocked, I was also shocked. I was like super confident, and I was just like talking same way as I'm right now, but also I had the perfect accent. My accent was even better than right now. Like, I'm very, my accent changes depending on the person that I'm talking to. So now, since I'm like living in Asia for the past like God knows how many months, my accent changed a lot. But back then I had the best accent, and I was like, wow, I'm really good at this. And this is how I gained an imminent confidence, and I just kept going. And it's worth noting that at no point in those 12 months I opened any grammar book or that discussing 303 words like IELTS bullshit book. None of that nonsense. This has been my full story. Now go check out part 2, where I tell you everything you need to do to get to this level of fluency. Thanks for watching.